Okay, we're live on YouTube.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm well. I'm very well, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm good because I've got my official Tim Hortons cup.
I am the superior in this case.
But I think Starbucks is copying the branding because red and white is Tim Hortons.
Oh, jeez.
Starbucks is supposed to be green.
Oh my God.
Unless it's Christmas time.
Well, I'm still in the Christmas spirit, so.
Well, that's good. And I see we have a few people here in chat. I saw Andrew Patton enjoying this live stream from a train in Switzerland. That must be scenic and quite a nice
Lovely
place to be.
I bet, yes.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us, Andrew. And if anybody else who's here in chat, don't hesitate to say hello. Let us know where you're watching from. I know many of you were at ISE last week, and some people have made it home. Some people are rolling it into other tours across Europe. So, let us know where you're tuning in from. I see BBI Productions. Great to see you. Oh, finally, the Ryan I was promised from ISE. We did. He's got the best smile at Epiphan. That's why we use him in the promo images. But we finally got him in front of the camera, thankfully.
Yes, they had to pull me in here. Yeah, big bribes actually from way up top.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of people were wondering where you were on that stream. So
Yeah, hiding.
He was, immersed in audio closet. I see Ian from Cisco Live in Amsterdam. Ian, thank you for joining us. Great to have you here. I know it's getting a little later in the day for you, so appreciate you joining us late on a Friday afternoon. Amagrev, hello from Southern California. Hello.
Nice.
That's nice. What's the weather like there? Probably very nice right now.
Probably much nicer than here.
Actually, we've had a nice week here in Ottawa. It's been a beautiful winter week. Okay, we got some more people rolling in here. We've got Luis from Chile. Great to have you, Luis. Thanks for joining us. Were you at ISE, Luis, or did you stay in the Western Hemisphere? Let us know. Actually, Barcelona's in the Western Hemisphere. It's close, right?
Whatever.
It's close.
Yeah.
It's somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere warm, bro.
Yeah, where hemispheres merge.
Yeah.
So we're here. We're live. This is very impromptu today on a Friday. Hi, Mike. Great to see you, Mike. I know. You're still overseas as well in Israel.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Lots of people have been traveling in the last week, so we thought it'd be a good opportunity now that we're back at home base. We had a chance to meet and chat with many of you at ISE in Barcelona, and that was wonderful. But, a lot of questions come up. A lot of people want to know about what Epiphan is doing, and it's hard to answer every single question that comes in, so we thought we'd come live to you today. We're here in our studio at our home base. We've got a Pearl Nexus here, and we're here to answer all of your questions. I see Gary joining us. Gary, great to have you. Thanks for joining us today. William, hello from Peoria. Good to see y'all. Hey, William, thanks for joining us. How's things on your end? Did you make it to ISE? Curious.
We're going to ask every single person in chat. Did you come to ISE?
Yeah, ISE was great. I thought it was awesome. It's the biggest ISE there has ever been.
70,000, 75,000 people or something?
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah.
And you know what? The show is just set up so nice.
Yeah.
So we really enjoyed our time there, and it was awesome getting to meet and greet with everyone.
Yeah.
And especially awesome when we get to reveal a new Pearl with the Pearl Nexus. And we had a lot of excitement at ISE. We had a lot of people coming up to the Epiphan booth wanting to learn about this product. So I see Ian here. He's got another couple more comments coming in. Sounds like you're on a boom mic. Sounds good. That's right. We actually have, what are we rocking here?
This is a Rode mic, some shotgun variation of it. It's it's actually quite good. In this room, the noise floor in this room is very nice. So
we do have some audio treatment in here, which is great. And then we're into a Soundcraft, which is a nice, basic online mixer.
UI24, I think we're using, which is a software mixer. So I have a lot of nice software tools, and a lot of the best routing, everything is done in software, which is pretty neat. So you can recall presets and things like that. So it's a good piece of hardware.
Yeah.
We actually use that at ISE as well.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, well, it's great to be in the studio. We're here with the Nexus, so we know many people have questions about Nexus. Who is this for? What are the capabilities? I think, you know, generally speaking, many people understand what Pearl is for. You know, capturing, recording, enhancing, and streaming video at scale with automations is what Pearl is all about. But this is really the culmination of a lot of that. And, you know, we see Pearl Nexus as a flexible, reliable, and scalable device for places where you want to automate video spaces, where you want to capture, record, and stream lots and lots of video, and you have a permanent installation that's probably integrated into a larger system. So whether you're working with something like a Crestron, Extron controllers, Q-SYS.
Essentially anything that you can send API commands from, you can use our API to control it with. So we have modules that are built already for us and are built in collaboration with companies like Q-SYS, Crestron, and Extron. But if you had any other tool or maybe something software you built, maybe something like an AMX, you know, you could use that and integrate that with this product as well, just using our APIs.
Okay, fantastic. And I mean, we're talking even with other smaller controllers, if you're using a Stream Deck.
Stream Deck too, absolutely.
There is a Stream Deck plugin, so you can start and stop your records and streams. Lots of ways you can control a Pearl. But in this instance, with Pearl Nexus, this is really designed to be, well, it's a 1RU rack mount unit. So it's designed to be permanently installed in a space where video is being created.
Absolutely,
right? So definitely higher ed has influenced the design of this device. We've worked closely with several schools and, you know, taken their feedback and requests on exactly what they're looking for to be able to scale video across their campus. Places like courtrooms or presentation spaces or really anywhere where a lot of video is happening is a great fit for this product.
Put it in the rack. It's controlled by the systems you have already integrated, works with everything. That's kind of what a premises of this device here.
Fantastic. We'll check in with chat here. I see a big thumbs up from Gary. Thanks, Gary. Ian, will there be a license for 4K inputs?
There is no 4K on this device. It's 1080p. 1080p 60 you could do for sure. For 4K, you'd be looking at Pearl Nano for single channel or Pearl 2 if you needed more capabilities.
So there you go, 1080p box, no license required.
No license required. Nope.
Right out of the box, plug it in, you're all set with 1080p.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Pearl 2 and Nexus as well, is we're an open ecosystem. So for this device, there's nothing else you need to purchase to add on to bring any features to it. The only thing that might be extra would be if you want to subscribe to Premium Epiphan Edge. But Epiphan Edge is free as well. Like if you just want monitoring, it's all there. There's no extra you need to actually put into it.
And we can talk about that, get into that a little bit more later. If people have questions about the cloud side of the Epiphan experience, we're happy to answer those questions as well. I do see a question here from Andrew. There is no screen.
There is no screen.
That's good observation there, Andrew. So with no screen, how do you go about setting up your initial IP address, and how can it be reset? That's a very good question.
So there's a few things on Nexus that's actually unique to it. On the front, there's a little button on the front here, and if you want to reset it, you can put a pin in there and hold it for I think about 15 seconds, and it should reset the device. To get the IP address, right now we have it, you plug in an HDMI monitor to the back of the device, and it'll populate a nice little screen showing you all this system information. I believe we're also working on something to do with a USB stick that you'll be able to pair the device automatically to Epiphan Edge as well.
Okay.
So, yeah, some options there.
So there you go. Once you get it paired up, you know.
The intention is to throw it in a rack, so it's not something you put on a podium. It's, you know, it's something that you set up once, and then that's, you know, it's there to work.
Set it and forget it. Yeah. There you go. So great question, Andrew. Thank you for that. We do have a number of other, and please keep your questions coming. We're happy to talk as long as you guys want to talk. That's what we're here for today. We do have a bunch of frequently asked questions that have come in over the last couple of days, so maybe we can dive into some of them. So the first question that we get, and this is a common one, is how many streams and records can I simultaneously do on a Pearl Nexus?
Absolutely. So on Pearl Nexus, you can do 3 channel recordings, and those can all be simultaneous to each other. From those channels, you can also do streaming. We recommend a maximum of 10 to 20 cumulative streams across the entire product itself. Usually you'd be running into uplink limitations before you run into hardware limitations in that account.
Okay, so there you go. So 3 channels. For those who aren't familiar with the terminology, what is a channel?
So a channel on a Pearl device is essentially its own encoder. So if say you get a Pearl Nano, it's a single channel, single encoder device, more traditional. Pearl Nexus is going to be essentially 3 of those in one box. So you could bring in 3 video inputs, and you could be recording them all simultaneously at the exact same time. So it allows you to capture ISOs, say a classroom with 3 different cameras, and then once that recording is done, those recordings get automatically uploaded.
So, okay. Yeah. So really, a channel is like an encoding instance,
yes,
if you will.
That's a very good example.
And those instances can be used to encode or capture a single video source, but it could also be a program that you create, right? Like maybe a side-by-side layout where one half of the screen I've got my slide presentation or my projector, and the other side of the screen I see a camera, something like that.
Absolutely.
Which is a nice number of 3 channels, because that means I can have a camera. I can be simultaneously recording a camera, recording maybe a document camera or a laptop or some other media source. And then on the 3rd channel, I could be recording my side-by-side, right? Yep. My program.
Yep.
So lots of options and flexibility. Or you could record 3 sources if that's something you want to do too.
Yeah, typically for, where this is, I think, really targeted for, usually we see a lot of ISO recording. So we have like the 2 or 3 sources that are being recorded at the exact same time, full frame. Push those elsewhere when we're done.
Perfect. Okay. I don't see any more questions in chat right now. If anyone wants to go deeper on any specific subject, Epiphan, please don't hesitate. But let's work our way through some of these other frequently asked questions. Okay, so Andrew touched on this a bit. How do I manage and set up the Nexus?
Yeah, so management, and let's talk about setup first. Setup is done via a web UI. Now, that can be via getting the IP address and setting it up that way with the computer. You could also, if you wanted to, connect peripherals like a mouse and keyboard and actually set this up with a HDMI display. Once it actually is paired to Epiphan Edge, you can monitor it, but if you have the premium version, you could set it up multiple devices at the same time with configuration presets and things like that across an entire fleet.
Okay, fantastic. And we can share some of that in a few minutes if anybody wants to see what the Epiphan Edge experience is. But to, I guess, kind of explain the term Edge.
Yeah.
Edge is kind of the concept of the edge network of devices, right? So maybe you have, a dozen rooms or 100 rooms. Your pearls are at the edge of that device network, right? That's where, content is captured physically in the space, right?
It's the last step before network, essentially, before it goes off of your network. That's why it's called an edge device, essentially. Okay. And that's why we have edge, because we're controlling our edge devices.
Fantastic. And I mean, if you've got dozens of rooms or even hundreds of rooms, as some Epiphan users do, you really do need that centralized monitoring, control, and administration portal to be able to manage that at that scale, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we have clients that have 300, 350 Pearl devices, and they're using a team of 2 or 3 people, and they're managing all those devices from a centralized place. And it cuts out a lot of the work for the administration. And I think one of the bigger universities that use our products said it reduces workload by a couple hundred hours a year. Which is significant.
Well, you can imagine on a university campus, just to walk to a single room could take 10 or 15 minutes.
Building to building, right? You have buildings that can be spread out by a whole bunch depending on the size of
in the same city, but not necessarily on the same campus.
Yep.
So cutting down on some of that administration time of actually having to physically go to a space to check on a device. We've sort of solved that and made it possible for a single technician to operate a fleet of edge devices.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Another question here, frequently asked question. Does it come with, some people call them ears. We've been calling them mounts.
Yep.
But these side units for rack mounting, can they be removed? Do they come with the device? What's the setup there?
They come with the device. They come inside the box. And you'll see we have like little nice cable ties kind of on the side here too. You can see right there.
Why don't we, I've got a little camera here. Cool. We can show up a little closer. George, can we maybe, we'll go pip or something like that? Okay, so here you can kind of see there's, 4 screws on each side?
4 screws each side, yep. Very just typical, setup there. And then we have these cable ties on the side here that you could, put your power supply in here maybe for the device. And then say you're wanting to take the output of this and put it into like a Zoom or Teams call or something like that. you could put maybe a capture card on this side, or even over on this side, and so it's all kind of integrated in one rack space. And then you're not, you're utilizing your space much better than than putting it all maybe on a shelf that's taking up like 2U space or something like that.
Yeah, nice. So nice, like some different conveniences for you in the actual chassis of the unit. Yep. Now you can remove those if you wanted to, right? Sure. And if you wanted to put this on a table just as the box and avoid rack mounting, it is possible to do that, of course, right?
Yeah, I think typically it's meant to go on a rack, but yeah.
While we have the camera up here, why don't we take a look at the back of the device a little more closely, because I know everyone loves to get up and close with the ports. Mm-hmm. So why don't we walk through what we've got here on the back, Ryan?
Absolutely.
Right to left or left to right or whatever.
We'll go this way, and then we'll switch this way, then we'll come back to this way. Yeah. So we have the XLR combo jack TRS inputs in the back here. Now these are pro line level, mic level inputs. You also have phantom power, so you could connect a condenser microphone to it if you needed to, anything like that. Consumer line level for electric microphones here, and then consumer line level RCA inputs. We have 2 HDMI and 1 SDI. This is a 3G SDI, so this would be a 1080p 60 maximum input. You could technically ingest 1920 by 1200 if you wanted to. 1 gig network port in the back here, and a programmable HDMI out. Now what that means is that you can have your program out, like we're doing inside the room here. You could have a multi-viewer. You could be outputting an input like an HDMI or an SDI. But you could also play out like an IP input if you wanted to. You could play out an SRT input. You can play out NDI-HX input. You can play out all these. You can play out whatever you want from the HDMI output. Completely programmable how you see fit, and that's all configured within the web UI. And then finally, we have USB 3.0 ports here, which can take in video and audio sources. So that could be a webcam with an integrated microphone, or maybe you want to connect like a USB microphone to it. That would work as well. And then just standard power and on and off button.
Okay.
There is a Kensington lock back here too.
Oh yeah, I noticed that little Kensington lock port there. That's great. Mm-hmm. Okay. Very cool. So I do see we have some more questions coming in on chat here. So let's see what we can answer here. So question from Andrew, all the way from his train in Switzerland. Is Epiphan Live still available on Nexus?
Correct. Yes. Yep.
Yes, it is. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Epiphan Live, it's a really nice interface for an operator. Mm-hmm. So maybe you don't want to expose all of the administrative capabilities of the device, but you want to hand this off to like a volunteer or someone who can just simply start and stop recordings or operate the device. Epiphan Live is a great way to do that. It gives you the switching capability to switch through all your layouts. Yep. And it sort of makes a nice experience for someone with no technical skill needed to be able to just operate the device, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, the web UI, like the admin panel that we do configuration in, that is really, you go in there and set it up. That'd be for your admin. Then we have Epiphan Live, which is like another level of operation. It gives you a nice little local way to monitor channels and inputs, but as well as it gives you a switcher. You can even see your recordings there as well. And it's just a nice looking UI. It's responsive to the screen that you're on. So it's much more user-friendly.
User-friendly and easy to understand, even if you have no technical expertise whatsoever.
For sure.
Okay. Question from Luis. Is there a way to work with Dante Audio? So that's a good question. Mm-hmm. So maybe you can start with the technical side of it, and then I can give the marketing spin.
Yeah, well, we're looking into it. Is what I can say, and that's basically it right now from technical side that I can speak to. But we're looking into ingestion on Dante.
I know that being at ISE last week, we see the little icon Dante spoken here, and you're noticing that in more and more spaces. Yeah. So we have been, I would say, working closely with the folks over at Dante over the last weeks and months. And, typically with Pearl and with the evolution of the Pearl devices, as we get more and more requests for specific protocols, whether it's SRT, whether it's NDI, we continually have added capabilities to these devices in the firmware updates.
NDI-HX came out to this, and that's just a free upgrade.
So there you go. In the same way that we've brought NDI-HX, that we've brought graphics input, SRT, I think we can expect, and it's safe to say that Dante is something that we're looking very closely at, and that we understand the importance of, and that we're motivated to bring to the Pearl family of products.
Absolutely, IP audio is definitely something that's coming more and more in effect, I would say, for sure.
Okay, so hopefully that gives you some insight there, Ian. Or that Luis rather. Ian does have a question as well. PoE support. So on Pearl Nano, we do have power over Ethernet.
We do.
Ian's looking for ways to be able to provide a locking power unit.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, so no PoE.
No.
Right?
No PoE.
This is too power hungry for PoE, unfortunately.
Yes, yeah. We cannot power this via PoE. Interesting about the locking power. Right now, we don't have something like that. It's a standard barrel lock-in, but maybe something we can look in the future for some other product.
Okay.
Later.
I know we do have like a plastic cover on a power button. Is that a thing?
We do, and what that does, it effectively, if you want to move over, I wish we had one we can put on here. It's just like a little bumper essentially, and it just covers the power button. And what that does, it makes it so people can't like actually touch this, but typically it's going to be in a rack anyways, so we wouldn't expect that the power cable or the button would be pressed after it's installed. But you could certainly, pop on this like little plastic bumper, and it just kind of makes it more resilient to people accidentally pressing that button.
There you go.
Yeah.
Ian was also wondering, or what does he say here? Some of the newer UVC webcams are PTZ. Any plans to support PTZ commands for cameras like Osbot, Insta360, et cetera, et cetera? So I'll let you take the first crack at that one.
Yeah, we've looked into PTZ control. Right now, we're not supporting it. But as Dan said earlier, any feature requests we get, we do take seriously. And the more requests we have for something, we take those.
I know we've prototyped with camera control before.
Yep.
But we want, if we're gonna add camera control, we want it to be good.
Yeah.
We don't like to do things at a half measure.
Yeah.
It would be probably easy for us to put some very rudimentary camera control on the device, but if we're going to do it in a way that makes sense for users, right?
Yep.
So if that's something that you need, Ian, let us know. We're always open to your feedback and requests, and if you share your application with us, that helps us to build the solution that's going to work for you.
Yeah, I think typically what we see in the field of people want to control cameras in tandem with Pearl is that they'd have the same API commands. The API commands are Pearl and for the camera on the same controller. And then so everything would be there for them. They just need to like move their camera, say a preset button, and then they can switch to a layout with another API command. So
it's interesting. Yeah. I was at ISE, had a chance to visit. Right next door to us was Roland, and they make some great live switchers and things like that. Yep. But for camera control, they actually just had like a like the number keypad, not even a full keyboard, just a number keypad.
Yeah.
And they had, and that is their sort of, I'd say, rudimentary workaround for camera control.
Yeah.
If you walk over to somewhere like Bird Dog, they have a very affordable camera control that I think they even provide for free with some of their cameras. So there are lots of options for camera control out there. I can understand why some people want to be able to do it on the device and have like an all-in-one solution there. Yep. So stay tuned, and we'll keep exploring that possibility. Any analog limiters on the XLR inputs?
Like digital signal processing. Right now, we don't have any of that. The expectation would be that you do your processing upstream from Pearl before you bring it in. So you'd hit your limiters, your compressors, your gates, or anything like that. It'd go into Pearl, and it would do all the capturing, stream it off from there, or record and upload to a NAS or maybe a CMS platform or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in terms of being able to control your XLR inputs, we do have gain control.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
We also have some synchronization capabilities as well, so you can add a delay to an analog input, right?
Yep, absolutely. Well, in this case, for the camera we're using now, we had to add some delay because the output from the camera was, slower than the analog audio, about 100 milliseconds or so, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think we added 120 milliseconds to this microphone just to slow down a bit to meet our camera.
Sync it back up. That's right.
And actually, right on the Epiphan YouTube channel, we do have a really good sync test you can find. If you just on YouTube, if you just search AV sync test, Epiphan, you'll find it. And I know a lot of people have used that to dial in their sync. It's a useful tool. Okay, so Ian, H.265 encoder, I assume. Any plans for AV1? So no H.265 on this device currently. We do support that on our Pearl Nano.
Yes, we do.
I know it's on our roadmap for future products that we have coming this year.
Exactly.
But currently no support for H.265 on this device.
No, AV1 not yet either. So yeah.
Any other encoding codecs? Like there's AVI.
Yeah.
Like we can do uncompressed or.
So we can record in different containers, like Move,
right.
I believe we can do API, MP4 fragmented.
But it's all H.265
all
or
H.264
codec.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The codec remains the same regardless of the container that's being used to actually enclose your recording data.
Yes.
And you can change the bit rate and the frame rate of your encoding as well. So we have if you by default are encoding set up for auto, which is basically based on a table that takes the frame rate and the resolution and then makes the bit rate that would be a nice trade-off between compression and also quality. But if you needed a higher quality recording, you could also just up the bit rate a bit.
Yeah.
I think our default's about 6 megabit per second. You can go up to 10 or 12 for a 1080p 30 production.
And depending how many channels you're using, right?
Absolutely.
I don't think we don't restrict you. If you wanted to create 5 channels on a 3-channel device, you could. Now you'll probably drop frames, right?
Yes.
The result. So
1080p. You could do like you can do more 720p channels because it's less processing power.
Right.
1080p we do recommend at maximum 3 1080p 30 channels for sure.
But the great thing is in the admin panel on a Pearl, you can see exactly what your CPU usage is, right? So you can see how much headroom you have to add more stuff, whether it's inputs or channels, and then
your frame rate.
Your frame rate, exactly. So there have been cases where I know I have sort of cheated the system a little, add a 4th channel onto a 3-channel device, but maybe that 4th channel is my presentation and my frame rate is only like 5 frames per second, and it's like a 700 kilobit encode.
Yeah.
You can squeeze that in there,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
So there are, we don't restrict you. It's really we provide our recommended spec, and then you're free to explore how far you can push the device beyond that. We won't restrict you.
Yeah, I think the goal with Epiphan for a while now is we like to put as much power in our users' hands as possible, so they can create their events how they see fit and really add value and enhance what they're doing and not try to put them inside a box.
Yeah.
So
yeah, perfect. I do see Jeremy dropping in from Jordan. Hey, Jeremy, hope you're good, man. Thanks for joining us. Ian saying he has a Nano, so he's just trying to compare and contrast the Nano. So I don't know, how would we compare and contrast Nano? Nano is really a single channel. It's got H.265, which is really great for transport, right? So I think as a transport device, Nano is really a perfect fit for that.
Yep.
Or for doing, more compressed recordings. If you have a single camera or a single source you need to record and you want to take advantage of that H.265 codec, that's where a Nano might fall into place. This is more designed for, a presentation space or a room or a classroom, a space where, probably you're integrated with other systems where H.265 may not always be present. So that might be kind of the good analog is, the Nano, a little more designed for moving video around.
Sure.
This is a little more designed for recording and streaming at scale.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little production house, is what you see it. Nano is your more traditional encoder. 1 or 2 inputs in, no layout switching. Typically, we'd see that downstream from a switcher, or really simple use cases where you might only have 1 or 2 sources coming in, and you just need a composite, or maybe just a full frame of 1 source. That would be a typical case for a Nano.
And just to follow up on the second part of Ian's question, AV1. AV1, growing codec. I know that a lot of the big CDNs are, it's on their roadmap if they're not supporting it already.
Sure.
I know Epiphan is looking at AV1, and as adoption increases, that's where it starts to make sense for Epiphan to add capabilities to Pearl. So we don't have it yet. We're aware of it. We're following it. We're testing. I know that it's more power hungry and processor hungry
Yes.
to encode and to decode.
Even H.265, like there's certain processors that aren't as good at actually encoding at that, and there's certain processors that are optimized for doing that.
Right.
So like there's CDNs that might have server houses, but if their server houses aren't optimized for encoding or decoding H.265, the amount of power they need, or like they need to upgrade to actually encode or decode that, is substantial.
It's substantially more.
Yeah.
You need more compute.
Yeah.
Okay, Luis, question. Can the latency of the different sources be adjusted? I ask because we have several types of inputs and different technologies and protocols, whether it's SDI, HDMI, USB, UVC, NDI.
Yeah.
So that's a good question.
It's
right?
kind of more dependent on the features of the protocol. So, like NDI or HDMI or SDI, those don't really have anything. I mean, HDMI and SDI are obviously hardware connections. They don't have a way to change latency of the video. Now, SRT does have latency built in. So if you were using SRT sources, you could change the latency of that. So for example, maybe if someone in Australia coming into production that's maybe delayed by 300 milliseconds because of how far they are away. You could delay everyone else that's local. If, say, some people in Canada, you bring it into one device, you can delay them by the same amount as the Australian participant, and then now you're all at the same latency coming into the device.
Right.
So that's possible with SRT, but with other protocols and the hardline connections, we can't change latency of video at this time.
So we have analog audio latency adjustment.
We do that, yes, of course.
SRT, so network transport, video latency latency.
Yep.
But for your physical sources, what you see is what you get.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see what else we have. I think the question here is related to audio sync. Perhaps, yes. That's the most common sync requirement is
absolutely
get my audio sync to my video sources, right?
Analog audio is electrical signals, so it is inherently going to be faster than digital video. And so typically we would expect maybe some adjustment on that front, but it really depends on the video source and what the latency is. But we have 300 milliseconds front and back that you can change for audio, and so you could kind of like speed audio up or slow it down.
Okay, and I see George has a suggestion there. You could always send out SRT and bring it back. Just a way to add latency. Kind of weird, but yeah, there's a workaround, right?
Yeah. Any IP stream is going to have some latency to it because it starts from one place, it has to hop across different routers, get to the next place. There's always going to be some bit of delay added.
Even right out of the camera, like
absolutely.
Different cameras I've experimented with. The HDMI port on cameras can vary in the amount of latency, and it's normally not huge, but it can be noticeable.
Yeah.
So.
And the brain only picks up on a certain amount of latency too. So there might be latency on the camera you're currently using, your brain just can't see it.
Yeah. Let's jump to a couple other questions. I want to touch on automation. I want to touch on cloud as well, but let's just look at some other FAQs.
Yeah.
Can I record directly to a USB or network storage location?
So how Pearl devices work and with Nexus works is this has a 1 terabyte SSD in the bottom, and you can see the bay in the bottom. It does come with that SSD. We always record directly to the SSD first, and then we can move from that SSD manually or automatically to a USB, automatically to a network storage device in your network, or if we're integrated with CMS like Panopto, Kaltura, Yuja, then that can all be set up to once your events are done. Those recordings are uploaded automatically to those CMS platforms. You can also set upload schedules. So let's say that you have a limited upstream bandwidth, or you're doing a lot of streaming during the day, and you want to minimize the effect of uploads and have those have on your upstream bandwidth. You can set an upload schedule to just upload
go
recordings.
At 1 a.m. or something.
Exactly,
right?
when no one's there, and then that way it's it's more fault tolerant in that case for your network. Yeah.
So redundancy is kind of looking at the device as having its own. It's kind of like the buffer for the final destination.
Absolutely. Yep.
Right. You're not going to be necessarily using this to manage your video assets. There's other systems that you're probably already using, right?
Yep.
But this will create that redundancy of that local storage, and when network becomes available, it pushes to your network storage or your content management system.
Yep.
So perfect.
And I think that's really the idea. Direct USB is great, but the USBs can pop out. It's much better to have an internal storage and then copy that to somewhere else.
Yeah, perfect. How do I control the Nexus as a fact? So you control it via web browser, right?
Web browser, you can do it via Epiphan Live like we talked about, Epiphan Edge, logging into it, or going into the switcher from Epiphan Edge. You could do it with API control. You know, we have Crestron, Xtron, QSys modules. And we kind of touched on this earlier. Essentially, anything that can send API commands, that can use our API, you can control this.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of guys do custom solutions with their own controller. Walk into a room. One of the most common things that people want to be able to do is walk into a room, a single button, right? Now, in many cases, fully automatic is preferable. No buttons, no user interaction. User doesn't need to understand anything about how the system works, but there are cases where someone wants to have a red button on the wall, right, to start the recording. You can even have a tally light, right, over USB, so you can tell when the system is recording, or maybe you need to share when the system is recording.
Absolutely.
For people in the room, you can do that. But I can show a little bit of like the control interface if we want to just go to my screen share here. I've got a couple Nexi. That's how that's the plural.
Yes, that's what we found at ISE, is that if you have more than one of these, they're called Nexi.
Exactly. I like it. So here's my Epiphan Edge, and I have a couple Nexi here. One of these is a classroom. So, you know, at the dashboard level, I can very easily see I've got my classroom, and you can name this whatever you want, of course. I've got my Pearl Nexus. It's online. I get my IP address. I can see that my temperature is nice and stable and tolerable. I can see how much storage I've used. If there were any alerts, for example, if someone unplugged an HDMI cable, or perhaps you know, so there's some configuration issue, I would have an alert here. But the check mark means there are no alerts currently.
If you just go down and see the one there with alert, if you click on that, it'll tell you what the alert is.
So here we have a full hard drive on this, so that's just something to be aware of.
No, that's actually a good point here. So Pearls actually are designed to be loop recorders. So that error that we see there is basically saying, hey, eventually we're going to start overwriting the oldest files. So how Pearl works is that sometimes you don't need to manage the internal storage at all. So if you're uploading files for recordings from a Pearl device via CMS or a network storage or even USB, you can keep on recording. You'll have that backup elsewhere, and then the Pearl will just start overwriting your oldest files eventually.
Kind of like your PVR at home, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And by the time, you know, we're talking about hundreds of hours of H.264 recording, so by the time you are overwriting old files, they're probably so old that you've already transferred them, you've already copied them to your, you know, they've already automatically transferred to your final destination, right?
For sure.
Okay, what else can we show here? I mean, in terms of a classroom, like here's a perfect example of a classroom where we have 3 channels on a Nexus. So we've got one channel that is just our PTZ camera in the room. And I can see some audio levels so that I know that this is functioning. I get a snapshot here of what the camera sees. If I want, I can turn on, and this will take a minute because it's actually going to connect a stream to the device.
An HLS stream. So HLS inherently has a much larger delay, and so you can
But I can turn my camera in there, and I can see, you know, the live feed, right?
Exactly.
From there, I can check my inputs on a device. I can see events. Now, if I was connected to a content management system, I would see all of the upcoming Panopto, Kaltura, or Yuja scheduled recordings or streams right here, right?
And maybe that's a good segue into, you know, our actual scheduling.
Yeah, sure. So something kind of new here that you'll see, Epiphan Edge scheduling. Okay, so let's click that. And it's going to ask me, do I want to enable Epiphan Edge scheduling on my device? Let's go ahead and enable that now.
You just go over and click on schedule to the left-hand side over there, and you can just choose the device that way.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. And then you can go add device, top right.
Add event. And now I can, let's call this morning recording session. And I can set a date and a time. So we've got, there we go. Let's just keep what we have there. That's fine.
Immediately. Yeah.
Maybe we want to repeat this event daily. Okay, so let's repeat this for the next 5 days. Okay, and then we can choose which device we want to run this schedule on.
And there's the classroom one we already enabled.
Okay, so let's run it on the classroom, and we will choose. Okay, so I don't need to record an ISO of the presentation or the document camera. Maybe I just want to record my PTZ camera. Okay, so I select that and create. And now I can see all of the upcoming scheduled recordings on that classroom device. And if I think if I go back here and navigate back to the device itself,
you should see it there too.
Let's just scroll down to it again. Where's my classroom? Here we go. Now I can see that right there on the top.
Yep.
Morning recording session starting in 58 minutes.
Yep.
That's perfect,
Yep.
right? I can, at a glance, see what's happening in my room. So this almost becomes like a periscope into that classroom, like useful for more than just monitoring. It's a great way to see into a room and understand the AV status in that room.
Really, the point is that you can have your administrators look at every single device that's paired, every single Pearl device that's paired to in a single place, and know exactly what's happening and schedule new events if they want to. And this works the same way as CMS events. If you have a Panopto or Culture or Usual, like Dan said, any events will pop up and you'll see them coming up. You can start them early in here as well.
I just thought this was cool too. Like if you click at the top here, like you can see the list of events, but you can also pull up a calendar, which can be useful to just like, if you do have a classroom that's getting used, maybe there's 2 classes in the morning, 2 classes in the afternoon, you have a lot of scheduling happening.
Yep.
Boom, calendar, great way to just get an overview of what's happening.
Absolutely.
Click into an event, I can see which source will be recorded, when it's starting, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
So just a nice visibility into that automation. And I think that's kind of what the power of this device is setting up that fully automated video workflow, right? Yep. From capture all the way through streaming, recording, and delivery of those files. And the notion of we shouldn't have to be encumbered by the technical understanding of the room. When you have lots of rooms, you're trying to remember what's in which room. This solves all of that, really. It just simplifies the experience where someone can walk into a room, do their recording or presentation on a schedule, and they don't have to think about it, and they don't have to interface with the technology. They can focus on what really matters, which is the content that you want to capture. Right?
Absolutely. Yep. For sure.
Let's check back in on chat here. I
guess Andrew's train got to the station.
Yeah. Andrew, thanks for joining us. If you're still there, it was great to have you, Luis. It seems like, we've probably answered a lot of questions. I'm going to do one more glance at the fact to see if there's anything else.
I think we pretty much got all of them.
Do we integrate with Zoom and Teams? Yes.
Yeah.
We do have an integration with Zoom and Teams. It's called Epiphan Connect. So it is possible to extract ISO video feeds from Zoom and from Teams and bring them into this device.
Yep.
It's using our tool called Epiphan Connect, which you can learn more about on our website.
Absolutely.
What kind and types of sources can I input into Nexus? Well, you've got physical video sources, SDI, HDMI, right?
USB, SRT, RTSP, NDI-HX. You can even put in web graphics as well. So say if you're using something like Uno or Singular Live or FlowX, you can bring in like a simple name on and off type of thing into a Pearl Nexus, and it adds a little more engagement to your productions.
So. And we have videos about that on our YouTube channel if you want to learn more about how to bring graphics into Pearl. But web-based graphics is very powerful because it's intuitive, it's easy to set up. It doesn't require another physical system to operate.
No, and if you're using a Stream Deck, you can actually control some of those things with a Stream Deck. It's pretty cool.
Perfect. I know a lot of folks want to do simple things like a scoreboard that just counts up, or a timer that counts down, or a single logo or graphic on the screen.
Web graphics.
More than capable. Okay. Does Nexus require integration with Epiphan Edge? No.
Nope.
Does not require. This can be a standalone. No edge management required. We do offer Epiphan Edge for free, which will give you the dashboard experience that we just shared. Start and stop your recording, start and stop your stream. If you want to be able to do scheduling, that is a premium feature using Epiphan Edge. Can you schedule without Epiphan Edge? It does require that, right?
You can schedule via CMS with Epiphan Edge. That's absolutely fine. If you want to use our scheduling system, you will absolutely need Epiphan Edge and the premium
subscription to Epiphan Edge. And that's, I think a very, we have a monthly plan or a yearly plan, or when you purchase your device, you can determine what amount of coverage you need for your roadmap, right? Does Nexus, answer that. What IP audio and video formats does Nexus work with? Okay, well, we talked about that, so.
So right now it's embedded audio, SRT, NDI-HX, or RTSP for IP.
Okay, amazing. So I think that covers all the frequently asked questions. It looks like chat is satisfied. We've answered lots of questions for chat.
Excellent.
So I think we can probably wrap things up there. It's been great hanging out with you here in the studio, Ryan.
Very, very nice.
And I'm excited to see more of these out in the world.
Absolutely.
We are you can start buying this now, right? Yeah. So contact your reseller, right?
Yep.
Get more information on epiphan.com if you still want to learn more. If you need to book a demo with us just to like look at some deep dive into something, you can do that.
Absolutely.
You can always email us, info@epiphan.com.
Or support@epiphan.com, either or.
Support@epiphan.com. The chat bot right on our website is a great way to reach us as well. If you have more questions, you can hit us up on YouTube. Throw a comment in there. I'm usually the guy that's going to respond to it. So happy to keep the conversation going there as well.
Awesome.
Cool, man. Cool. Happy Friday.
High five.
Yeah, that was fun. And thank you all for joining. And we look forward to chatting with you again soon. For now, Dan and Ryan signing off.